Well, hello everybody, and a happy new year as well, and welcome back to the F1 show here on Motorsport Radio in 2022. I know, crazy, innit? Doesn't time fly? My name's Ross McIntyre. Joining me, as always, these two wonderful fellows on my left. No, I don't know, whatever side this is. We've got Connor Jackson, as always. How you doing, Connor?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing, Ross? It's a pleasure to be back. Of course, new year, new me. It isn't a new me. It's the same old me, same old you, Ross. I think we all know this. But hopefully we can come up with something a little bit different this season. And, well, with all the new regulation changes, I'm sure it will be a blast.
Oh, it definitely will be. And, well, definitely no new me for Joshua Harrison as well. Josh, it's a pleasure, my friend. How are you?
I'm very good. Happy New Year, Ross. How you doing?
I'm alive, I think. You know, it's been a nice Christmas. Shame to, you know, have regular life kicking back in, but, you know, nice Christmas, nice New Year. But at the same time, the F1 show's returned here, so that's pleasant. And you know what? I thought, you know, we're going to kick off the new year just with a bit of fun. Let's keep with the fun theme that we're having. And as you can see, Formula Future, we're going to be making some predictions about the 2022 Formula One World Championship. And now, obviously, come the end of the season, none of these will turn out to be true. But why not have a bit of fun, you know? So we're going to ask a few questions, you know, just, you know, get some predictions out there, see what's going to happen, just see what our expert pundits and panelists I think is going to happen in this new season of Formula One with these new regulations coming in. And, well, according to our producer, Pedro Diniz is going to return to the grid. I'm not entirely sure about that one. But I think I'll open off. I think we'll start off. Let's make some just early predictions and then just see how we go from there. I don't really know how this is going to work, but we'll see how it goes. My prediction is at least one driver, ends up getting COVID and missing a race. I think that's pretty fair. You know,
I mean, it is fair, but it sort of raises the question then of who are you predicting to get COVID then, Ross?
If we're going that far, 20 drivers, let's pull one out of a bag. I reckon Fernando Alonso, for no reason other than we were speaking about before the show and he just popped into my head. There you go. That's my prediction. First prediction of the year. Fernando Alonso will contract COVID-19 and will be forced to sit out a race.
I'm saying, Ross, you are 100% saying this because in the back of your mind, you're like, I so want Oscar Piastri just to get a race seat.
I mean, to be fair, you know, I would love to see Piastri getting a crack in an F1 race. I'd love to see how he would do. But, you know, we'll have to see. It could be any driver. I mean, who got it this year? Kimi got it.
Yeah, it was literally just Kimi this year. But
it was a load of people got it at the start of the year, but didn't, or last year now, actually. But, yeah, a lot of people got at the start of the year but didn't miss races. The only person who missed a race was Kimi, and obviously we had Robert Kubica standing in for an event or two, I think it might have been, which was, you know, nice to have him back. But yeah, there you go. That's my prediction. Fernando Alonso is going to get COVID at some point, and he'll miss a race. I don't know which one. It'll be one of them.
Can I say it's the last race as well? Dark the way that Ross was like, yeah, Fernando Alonso will get COVID.
It's fine.
For a Fernando Alonso fan, I'd like to say that if he does get COVID, he will be perfectly safe. He'll be
fine. He'll be absolutely fine. You know, there'll be no you know, hospital visits for Fernando. He'll be sat at home with his feet up, watching a box set or something with a nice glass of wine. It'll all be absolutely fine. And he'll be back on track before you know it. And seeing as how you've interjected that point, Josh, why don't you give us a... Let's start with reasonable predictions, I think, because I'm not saying Fernando getting COVID is a reasonable prediction, but I think a driver getting COVID is a reasonable prediction. So, Josh, if you will give us a reasonable prediction for the 2022 season.
I reckon Martin Brundle will describe what DRS and KERS is at least 20 times over the course of the season.
Yeah.
Considering there's 23 races, Ross, that's implying Josh, that's implying there's at least 3 races that he's just going to assume we all know, which, if in my opinion, is the bigger implication of all that, is that you are predicting Martin Brundle will not say what KERS is for 3 of the rounds this year, which...
Well, I'm hoping he doesn't, because I think we've heard it so many times now. It's just like, we don't care.
I mean, I understand why he does it. I mean, as I'm not saying I'm a world famous superstar, but as a fellow commentator, you have to keep the new people interested. Yeah, esports and Fab Racing. Come on, Motorsport Radio, Fab Racing, 2022 season. Be there or be square. We'll be back. But as a fellow commentator, as I just do up my imaginary tie. Yeah, you have to like keep the new people interested, and obviously Formula One is statistically the fastest growing sport in the world at the moment. So there's lots of new people coming in all the time. I think it might have been the race in America this year was like the most watched F1 race ever or something, which is very impressive. So it's like it's just like you got to keep these new fans interested, especially when they're coming in. So a lot of Sky Sports F1's audience is probably newer fans. You can tell from the way they put their package together that they're not aiming as much towards a hardcore fan. Like there's hardcore elements to it. Though you can, stay up and, watch Ted's Notebook, whatever that's called. That's all, very technical stuff. But I think this is just me thinking, but I think Sky Sports F1 anticipate that the hardcore fans are probably going to be going for like the F1 TV package. So they just kind of go for this kind of intermediate route, but they've got some in-depth stuff, but they keep a lot of new stuff. So I think they probably tell him to talk about that. But so Josh, you think that there's going to be 3 races this season, assuming there isn't a race cancelled, that Martin Brundle will not talk about DRS and KERS?
Well, yes, because I think you might get COVID and miss 3 races.
All right, so there's Josh's prediction. Martin Brundle in 20 of the events this year will describe DRS and KERS, and in the other 3 he won't be there because he's got COVID. Although to be fair, he usually misses about 3 races a season anyway, doesn't he? So
there we go.
There you go. Oh to be fair, that works out because he does usually miss a few races in the season, coming into about 3/4 of the way in the season. So there you go. Thank you very much, Josh. Very interesting prediction there. Connor Jackson, it's your moment in the sun, your moment in the spotlight. Hit us with your predictions for the 2022 Formula One World Championship.
Mr. McIntyre, what can I say? Both of you have kind of touched on things I wanted to talk about anyway, which says a lot. But COVID, speaking on that particular side, there were sort of 2 things I was thinking about for this. The first one was they're going to scrap some element of the COVID rules halfway throughout the year. We're getting to the point now where pretty much all of the paddock that wanted to be and needed to be is going to be vaccinated. Most countries around the world, I think, are going to be a little more lax on some of their regulations over the course of 2022, especially during the summertime. And so I think there's going to be some sort of relaxation of rules when it comes to bringing in different engineers or bringing in different teams. Because prior to this, for the last 2 seasons, they've been doing bubbles, haven't they, with the different teams? And if you have a core group of engineers or mechanics, those core people go from one round to a next, only semi-regularly replacing them. I think there's going to be a lot more relaxing of that over the course of the season, which should allow different mechanics to swap around. Because I know one of the big things that's been talked about over the winter was this 23 race season and how it's going to be an absolute dire strain on the mechanics to just keep going every single round, because there's so many rounds back to back and flyaway events that it's going to be a very big mental stress on a lot of them. So I have a feeling there's going to be some relaxation of the COVID rules that means that we're going to be getting a better turnaround, at least for the top teams who can afford to do so, a better turnaround of pit mechanics that I think will at least keep the pit stops fresh and keep the times down in the latter half of the season. On that note, by the way, I did want to make a sort of a second prediction, stepping a foot over the mark there, Ross, is COVID, again, will cancel at least 1 race this season. I'm not going to say which race it is. You can make up your own mind about that. But there's going to be at least 1 race this season.
Don't say that.
For various reasons.
We're getting all the COVID stuff out the way early on, Josh. Yeah, just let it happen. Just get it out the way, and then we can get onto the real stuff.
Exactly. We're getting the trash talk out the way. And I will slightly back that up by going, we're going to have Turkey on the calendar for the 3rd year in a row, because that race has basically just become the COVID replacement race. For the whole calendar. It's like it sits there, not with a contract, just waiting in F1's phone book, casually giving Massey texts every 2 weeks going, how you doing, buddy?
We're still here.
We're still here. Do you want to come back? And then he'll come back and it's all shiny and everyone in Turkey loves them. And yeah, Turkey replacement race.
Well, there you go. Turkey's history of one night stand with Formula One continues. So there's Connor Jackson's predictions. We've got the COVID stuff out of the way. So we'll just carry on going around in circles. So I'll go next. Right, we're gonna get into some spicy things now. I'm gonna drop a spicy bombshell, and you're probably both gonna disagree with me on several fronts. But I've got a list of drivers who I think are gonna win a race next year. Are you ready to hear it?
Maybe.
Yep.
Right, let's get the obvious ones out of the way. Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton. That's a given, right?
Lewis is in the season this year.
I'm presuming that Lewis is going to be in the season. I would be, first of all, that's my first prediction. Lewis is definitely not throwing it in the can. They're paying him like 60 million a year plus bonuses plus sponsorship money. Like, come on, mate. You don't just lose passion in tax avoiding that much money. Okay, so let's presume that Lewis is on the grid.
You're putting a lot of pressure on how much money people get as a motivator.
I mean, as well, I think with a driver. I mean, obviously, to be fair, if he had decided it was given up, he'd probably have already told him there'd be contract stuff going in place. But, there's been no talk from the paddock. There's been no talk in the press of, potential replacements or whatever. So that would leave a gaping hole in the Mercedes garage. And, I mean, the only feasible thing I could think they would do is stick Nick de Vries in the car, because I think he'd be the only available driver with a super license. And I cannot see that going particularly well, to be brutally honest, pairing up Russell with de Vries. Right, presuming Lewis Hamilton's in the sport, which he will be, let's be honest here, Hamilton, Verstappen, they're going to win a race. Now, going to continue my list. Lando Norris. Yeah, okay, getting nods there. Carlos Sainz. And George Russell. I think those are going to be the 5 race winners we've got next year. I don't think anyone else is going to win a race.
So you don't think Albon will win a race?
No. I mean, not particularly. I can't see the Williams being the new front runners next season, to be real. Again, we'll talk about who we think teams will be fast next season, but I think those 5 drivers, I think we'll have 5 race winners next season, and it will be those 5.
I mean,
Danny the Grin Ricciardo. Surely he'll do it.
I just don't think so.
Well, there we go. I mean, I know you say we'll come on to teams in a bit, but, surely the implication of these drivers will win a race in lieu kind of suggests that...
Where I'm aiming for the teams thing. Yeah, to be fair, it kind of gives it away a bit. But, yeah, that's... I don't know. I mean, I think Lando is... Well, Verstappen and Hamilton is obvious. I mean, you've got a 7-time world champion and the guys just won the world championship. That's kind of a given. They're going to win races if they're in race-winning cars. Lando, I think, for me, was the most improved driver on the grid this season. I think he had some very, very mature drives. Russia really sticks out in my mind as a brilliant drive. Just got unlucky with the weather and the team are kind of backed into a corner with their decision whether to pit or not. I think if he was given a race-winning car, I think he would definitely win races. Whether he'd be challenging for championships yet, not sure. But I think he would definitely be a race winner. Sainz as well, I think this year was brilliant. I think he had quite a quiet 2020. I thought his 2019 was really, really strong, and then his 2020 was quite quiet. And then he's come to Ferrari, who not the best car, but, it was definitely better than what they had last year. And he's really adapted to the team well. He actually, beat Leclerc in the end as well. Got a couple podiums along the way. I think he's had a really, really strong season. And I think, again, a lot of improvement shown from him. I think he'll win a race. And then Russell as well, because I think Mercedes will still be one of the front runners. And I think he is absolutely brilliant. And, I mean, if Bottas can win a race in a Mercedes, why can't George Russell?
What about Haas?
We'll get onto the teams in a minute. I don't particularly see Haas being front runners either, shall we say? All right. I just, I was hoping for some more debate here, and instead I've just got Josh going, "Oh, what about Williams? What about Haas?"
Right. Okay, Ross. I'll challenge you on that. You've notably missed out Perez there. Now,
I have.
Why? Why do you not think Perez or the Red Bull team can pull off another race win?
I mean, Perez won in Baku this year basically through sheer luck more than anything. He had a good drive, but he was helped by a few people's having some tyre failures.
I mean, so did Esteban Ocon, but he
That's
still won
very
a race.
true. I mean, Ocon did still win a race, and that was very, very true. But, again, pure luck. I don't think... I don't know. I think next year is going to be... I don't know. It's hard to explain what is essentially a bit of a hunch, to be honest. But I don't see Perez consistently challenging for wins. And, again, this season, we didn't see him consistently challenging for wins. We barely saw him consistently challenging for wins this season, to be honest. And even for Yops' game, I don't see him consistently challenging for wins. And, when you consider, the drivers he's around, Hamilton, Verstappen, Norris, I don't see him coming out on top in scenarios. He could win a race. I think out of the rest of the drivers on the grid that I didn't mention, it would be between him and Leclerc are the two most likely to win a race out of the rest of them. I just don't see him winning a race, really, to be honest.
Okay. Ross, I'm gonna back you up with some of this, but also challenge you slightly.
Okay.
In the sense of, if you wanted to ask me who I thought my race winners were going to be this season, I'm going to say both Ferraris.
Ooh,
both
interesting.
McLarens.
Oh, okay.
And Hamilton and Verstappen.
Okay, so you're both McLarens and both Ferraris, both McLarens. I kind of want to be surprised, but I'm not at the same time, because I can kind of see where you're coming from with. Because I'm kind of similar. Again, we'll get onto the teams, but I'm in a similar train of thought, I think, as you are. That's very interesting. I mean, again, both McLarens legible. I think just below in my list of most likely to win outside of my group of Perez and Leclerc would be Ricciardo. Again, Monza did very much win on his own merit. Again, Leclerc, we know, is a very, very quick driver. But again, Leclerc, I didn't think he was that good this year, to be honest, between you and me. I thought he was, or last year, it's 2022 now. I don't know. And there you go. George Russell is the big elephant in that room as well. I definitely stick George Russell on that list, but that's just me.
No, that's fine. I will answer both of your points, Ross. First one, Leclerc. I agree in the sense of you're right. Signs did kind of show him up a bit in 2021, and I'll put a hand up to that one. However, I want to point you back to 2017. I want to say, he says, trying to remember his years correctly. Daniel Kvyat, first year in the Red Bull.
Rosso was 2017. His first year. His first year in Red Bull was 2015.
Okay, I will believe you. I will believe you on that. 2015. Okay, my point being, my friend, is that in that first year, that first full season he had with Daniel Ricciardo in the Red Bull, at the end of the season, he finished out with more points. He beat Ricciardo in that car. Now, Ricciardo has a lot when it comes to actually being a top driver, and I think a lot of us actually just pull back to 2014 as his great year and sort of as proof that he should be world champion. But there's a lot of question marks, I think, about how good Ricciardo actually is, other than maybe that one great season back in 2014. Saying that, Kvyat beat him that season on points and then proceeded to utterly get trounced by him for the first 4 races of the following year, only to end up getting replaced by Verstappen after Spain, or at Spain.
Before Spain, yeah.
And I think the same is going to be with Leclerc, in that sense. He did have a bit of a dodgy season last season, but he's seen the actual challenge that Carlos can provide now. He's seen the new kid come on and show that he can't just sit back and relax. Because I think maybe there was a slight element of, I've beaten Sebastian Vettel, a 4-time world champion. Of course I'm the number 1 driver. Of course I'm the special kid. I don't need to try. And now someone's come in and he's, challenged his crown, as it were. And I don't think Leclerc will be challenging for the title this season, but I do think that him and Sainz will be very neck and neck at the start, which might give him a sort of a fluke race win somewhere along the line. Because following on to what we're going to get on in a bit, which is teams, McLaren and Ferrari have prepared immensely for this 2022 season. They didn't do a whole hat and just give up 2021, but they have put a lot of resources into developing this new car. They gave up sort of developing at the end of 2022 when Red Bull and Mercedes were still fighting it out, were still bringing upgrades and developments all the way up until the penultimate race in Saudi Arabia. And yet both of them pulled back. Both of them looked at the future and knew where they were going. And Ferrari have a good package under them. And I can see them winning races in the first half of the season and being a championship threat at some point, which is why I want to say Leclerc for that.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with both of you and continue. On my race winners, I think both Mercedes will win at least once. Both Red Bulls will win at least once.
Okay.
Both Ferraris and both McLarens will win at least once. And 2 other drivers. I think we'll get 10 different race winners.
Any insight on who those 2 other drivers are?
I can see Ocon sort of stumbling into a victory.
Again.
Yeah, literally. And I mean stumbling into victory. Just like, oh, hang on, I'm in the lead. Okay, what do I do now? And I think, again, Gasly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
10. I don't know when the last time in F1 there were 10 individual.
Got a long way back for that one.
But I'm guessing it'll be a long way back.
You're making me think of 1982 here, where just nobody wanted to win it.
Yeah, hang on. I'll go ask my good friend Google most race winners in an F1 season.
Good luck.
I mean, the first one that comes to mind, I think, would be 2012. Yeah. But because I mean, they had 7 in the first 7 races, which is, quite impressive.
Josh, while Ross is searching up, you said both Mercedes, didn't you? Yeah.
Yes.
But you didn't say Red Bull.
I did say both Red Bull.
Oh, you did say both Red Bull.
Mercedes, both Red Bull, both McLarens and both Ferraris.
Okay, so you're going the full 8. Okay, fine.
Yeah, and 2 extras.
2 extras. Okay. Why do you think that those 4 will be so competitive that they can claim wins off each other? Because as one thing I think Ross and I both mentioned about Perez, which is that he just wasn't at Verstappen's level this year. Not only was he not at Verstappen's level, but when he was anywhere near competitive, he was being told to basically give up the win for Verstappen. And if you're going into 2022 and in your scenario, Josh, where you're going to have 4 very competitive teams, in fairness, that's mine and Ross's scenario as well. So, but if you're going to have 4 very competitive teams, who's to say that Sainz for Ferrari or Ricciardo or Norris for McLaren, or notably Perez for Red Bull, is going to actually be fighting for those race wins? Surely the best port of action for Perez at the very start of the season is to go, right, I'm going to help Verstappen win the driver's title again, like he did last year. And that's going to be his sole purpose. And so he basically does a Bottas and becomes the greatest number 2.
There is that, but Max Verstappen, as we know, drives on the edge of what's legal and what's not.
Josh, bro, just gonna put my hand up and say, calm down before we stray into dangerous territory.
I'm not going into it.
No
right?
politics. No politics.
But we know how he drives. He's admitted himself how he drives. Okay. We know how close he is to having a race ban on his license, which I believe the points are on there until mid-season next season. So there is a high chance that Max Verstappen could do something that could end up seeing him have a race ban, which means Perez will be the only Red Bull competing, which is then when he can win. We know McLarens are fast, on power circuits. We know the Ferraris are fast in the more handling circuits. We know the Mercedes...
that is based off of this year.
Yeah, but...
last year even.
I'm basing it on 2021, and I'm thinking it will be the same for 2022, right? It will be completely different, but I'm thinking that Mercedes and Red Bull will alternate, different circuits to different cars. So that's where those 8 will all come in. Perez, I think, at some point will win a race anyway, just by the fact that he can conserve his tyres, and he seems to be able to race at a slower pace, granted, but at a more consistent pace through the race. And I reckon there will be a time when it will be a drying track and do you switch to inters? Do you stay on the wets, or do you switch to dry and stay on, and it'll be that sort of thing where Perez will look after his inters and will win the race on inters, for example. I think one race this season will be one of those really confused grids, and you'll find that Perez has just driven to victory on old tyres that have just gone 30 laps longer than Pirelli said that they would do.
It's an impressive prediction, and I'm tempted to believe you on that one. Although I think you did basically drop a bigger bombshell in that entire escapade, which was you think Max Verstappen's going to get a one-race ban at some point throughout the season.
Yes, because as I said, I believe he's on 8 points on his licence, and I think if you get 10, you get a race ban. And those 8 points, I think going
it's 12
away.
actually. I think it's the same as like a road license. It's 12. But
yeah, he's 4 points away. And I think, I can't remember where I read it, but I think I read somewhere that the first of his points don't go away until race 5 of the season. So he's got 5 races where he can't do anything to get points. And we know Max Verstappen drives on the edge. There's a good chance that he might get on the wrong side of that edge.
Interesting. Very interesting. I mean, I'm still interested about the one race bans, but and I mean, of course, do you think Verstappen's going to get a one race ban over at home? Do you think we're talking a load of rubbish, and are you going to come back at the end of the season and laugh in all of our faces as Nikita Mazepin is crowned champion of the world? Don't be afraid to get in touch at Motorsport Radio on all good social media programs, platforms, whatever you call them. And if you are watching on, you can pop your own predictions in the chat as well. We'll have a look. We might have a little discussion. If I can be bothered to go find them at the time, I might have a look afterwards and then tell you next week you're full of rubbish as well. Now seems like a good time to transition over to the teams, because I think we're all in a similar vein of thinking for once. I think we've all said that it's going to be Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, McLaren are going to be the race winners next season, but it's just where they line up. For me, I think it's still going to be Red Bull and Mercedes at the top, but I think Ferrari, McLaren, I don't think they're going to be top front runner pace. I think they're still going to be best of the rest of the midfield, but I think they're just going to be a lot closer than they were this year, which is why they're going to be there. Our producer now said Minardi to make a comeback and start to victory, which means Pierre Gasly would be a race winner. There you go. If Minardi did win, of course they are now AlphaTauri. So yeah, I think, again, you can disagree with me and tell me I'm full of rubbish, but for me, I still think it's going to be Mercedes and Red Bull at the front. I then think it will be Ferrari as the third best car, and then I think just behind them will be McLaren.
So you're predicting the same top 4 in the same order as this year?
Yeah, I'm predicting this to be a very, very underwhelming season on paper. Like, if you just looked at the results compared to like last season, and I mean, if you like ignored the whole Verstappen Hamilton tiebreaker race stuff, if you just like looked at the results on paper post-season and went, oh yeah, there was a massive regulation change to make this more interesting, by the way, I think you'd be like, oh, really? I mean, I think down the pack, I think there'll be some big shuffling, definitely. I think just for that top 4, and I think the midfield in general is going to be very, very close. I mean, even closer than it was this year. I think the gap between the top teams is definitely going to shut down. The midfield and the back marker is going to shut down. I think this year there'll be less of like a clear distinction between midfield and back marker. I think, you could be seeing, traditional, I think, midfield teams like Alpine have been this season, for example. Even though they won a race, they could be having races where, they're struggling to make it out of Q1 just because their car just isn't working. I think it's going to be an interesting season like that. But I think for the top 4 teams, it will still be the same order, just very, very closer than they were this year anyway. And I cannot tell you who will be quicker at Mercedes and Red Bull. There you go. I think it's definitely going to be Mercedes, Red Bull, the best 2 cars on the grid. That's what I can say for definite.
I'm going to change that and make it more interesting this year. I predict, due to the fact that Ferrari and McLaren stopped developing last year's car early, I can see it being McLaren, Red Bull and Mercedes battling for the championship, with Ferrari being just behind, picking up the pieces. And I think in every race, there won't be Verstappen, Hamilton 65 seconds ahead of everyone else. It will be Verstappen, Hamilton, Norris, maybe Russell, maybe a group, maybe a 5 or even a 6 pulling away. Those 4 teams will pull away, and I think it'll be interesting to see if all 8 will pull away or whether they'll leave some people behind. But it would not surprise me if McLaren are, at least for the first 4 or 5 races, looking really, really dangerous until obviously Mercedes' budget and resources and Red Bull.
The classic Mercedes development train.
Yeah, but initially I think you'll find that even in testing, I think it would not surprise me if McLaren is fastest by a margin as well. Not like just, I think, 2, 3, 4 tenths of a second.
I mean, again, like I think the way to look at, testing is, especially this year, I think is going to be just ignore it, because you think back to 2018 when it was, we looked at 2017, yeah, but 2018 especially, as you look at testing and you go, Ferrari have the best car. And to be fair, I think in 2018, for a portion of the season, they definitely did have the best car, but in the end, it all fell apart. Again, I think this year testing is going to be the most ignore it, because there is going to be a lot of teams, because it's new regs, not wanting to give it away. Because the last time we had this, was like 2009, and Braun gave it away because they didn't realize how good they were, essentially. So I think Jenson Button's first run in the car, which was bear in mind they missed the first test, was a heavy fuel load run, and he came back and was like almost a second quicker than anybody else. And that wasn't because they were like, he wasn't sandbagging. That was because they genuinely had no idea how good the car was until they actually stuck it out on track. I think this year people are going to have, they've got the data from the wind tunnel. They are not going to be wanting to repeat that. If they've got a really good motor, I don't think they're going to want to give that away. So I think they're going to really sandbag in testing. So I think, if McLaren, let's say McLaren do top testing, by a couple tenths of a second, I reckon we would rock up. Where is the first race? Isn't it Bahrain? I think it's, thank you, Bahrain. I think we'd rock up in Bahrain, have Ferrari up the road, for example. I think this year testing, it could be very, very interesting. But, interesting point you make with the teams there. I think, I could certainly see, you make a good point. Obviously, I think everyone is expecting Ferrari and McLaren to be challenging for wins this season. Again, I still think Red Bull and Mercedes are going to be the top 2. But, Josh, taking an interesting, different angle there, just shake it up a bit.
I would like to back Josh up for probably the first time. For probably the first time in a while, actually. I'd like to say that...
The only time of this season.
Exactly. For the first time, I don't think Josh is speaking out of his behind. But, yeah. I can genuinely see McLaren doing well in the first part. Ferrari too. I want to say McLaren and Ferrari for the first part of 2022 are going to be the people to beat. And I have a feeling they're going to be people to beat until Mercedes development train kicks in. Now, I'm not saying this won't happen, and I'm absolutely certain Mercedes at some point by the middle of the season will be the team to beat in some way or form, shape or the other. What I will say is that I think Red Bull are going to be our 4th team. I think Red Bull spent too much on 2021. I think their switch from Honda engines to the in-house Red Bull powertrains is going to limit them in some way or another when it comes to developing the engine or developing it in that sort of sense. Verstappen and Hamilton, their clear advantage means that inevitably at the end of the season they are going to be up there fighting for the title in whatever order and with whoever. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. But in terms of the actual team's order, I can see Ferrari being the consistent team that may take the constructors title. They might not be challenging for the drivers title, but it might be a sort of a 2008 scenario in which Ferrari have the best car, but they didn't prioritize one of the drivers for long enough, basically. So one of the other teams took advantage in that year. It was obviously Hamilton, and Hamilton won the driver's title, and Ferrari ended up winning the constructors. But yeah, I have a feeling Ferrari will be the Mr. Consistent team, consistently, 3rd, 4th place or whatever. But I'm going to say that there's a tip here for going Lando Norris for championship contention this season. because I talked about Norris being sort of in the prime of where he is now with McLaren. He's really finding his groove. He's established at the team. He's got a teammate with Ricciardo who, although he's settling in, isn't really giving him the big headaches that we all imagined he would. And unlike, say, Perez, who I do think is a good driver, but Perez as a second driver in Red Bull is struggling because the second drivers in Red Bull always struggle. And Russell's going to have a similar issue with the Mercedes. I did say when we did the drivers' predictions, Russell won't win a Grand Prix. There's a reason for that, because Mercedes will realise early in the season that the Constructors is going to be a hard battle for them to win. And it is a lot better to focus their resources in getting Hamilton that driver's title. And we're going to end up with a Bottas scenario in which Russell is basically asked to play second fiddle, especially for the second half of the season, when Mercedes will be on their momentum and their power train, and the development train will mean they're back at the front of the grid. Russell still won't get a chance to win a Grand Prix because he will basically be asked to be the second driver throughout that second half of the season. And so my prediction in terms of teams is that we're going to see, as I said, McLaren and Ferrari as the big teams at the start of the season. Mercedes catch up by midpoint, and we're going to have Hamilton, Norris, maybe Verstappen, although I wouldn't be surprised if we end up with sort of a Jacques Villeneuve 1998 scenario in which he's basically uncompetitive. Although it's Verstappen, so I'm not ruling that out at all. But Norris, Hamilton, definitely, and maybe one of the Ferrari drivers if they can bother to prioritise. If not, then they've screwed it up for themselves.
I'm going to go on top of I'm going to agree with Connor a little bit as well. But I'm going to predict something that I think everyone will be thinking, really? Are you sure?
I mean, we do that every week with you, Josh, but
Yeah, let's be honest.
Will not win a race in the first 10 races, right? Red Bull will not win in the first 10 races.
Okay.
McLaren will have a driver in the top 2 after the 10th race. Ferrari will have a driver in the top 3 after the 10th race. Neither Red Bull driver will be in the top 3.
See, because of how I've structured in my mind how I think next year's going to go, I can't see anyone other than Verstappen or Hamilton being champion at the end of this year, presuming like what I think comes out to be true. So, for you to be going out there and saying, no, Red Bull aren't going to win any races for the first half of the season, for me, that's really interesting, because I get that, if McLaren and Ferrari are good, like, and let's presume, if you say, we've got like Hamilton, Leclerc, Norris as your top 3 in any order, no, I can kind of see that, but again, even if the Red Bull is a vaguely front-running car, for me, Verstappen is the strongest driver on the grid at the moment, and he's got a world championship behind him. He's had all that pressure off his shoulders. I think next year, he's going to go up a level again, actually. So I think to say that a Red Bull won't win a race in the first 10 races, I don't know, because I think even if they're not the best car on the grid, I think Verstappen's just going to drag that car to a win, because I think next year we're going to see another side of him. But, it's again, part of the fun is making silly predictions. That's what we like doing. And, of course, you can make your silly predictions at home and get in contact here over at Motorsport Radio on all good social media platforms. But, Josh, talk to me more about that, because that's just really interesting to me.
So my theory behind this is Red Bull obviously wanted Verstappen to win this title last year, right? Guaranteed. They wanted to win.
Yeah.
And I think they've put so much money and resources into that drivers' championship, and it meant so much for Red Bull. And obviously Christian Horner was like, look at my girlfriend Jerry, look how happy she is, and all this, and everyone else was like, can I punch you? Am I allowed to go and punch you?
All right.
But I think they have would have well and truly screwed themselves over for 2022, because yes, Mercedes finished top of the constructors, so they'll get the least amount of wind tunnel time. But Mercedes didn't develop their car anywhere near as much as Red Bull did in 2021. And I think Mercedes was focusing on this year's car a lot earlier than Red Bull were. and were developing this year's car a lot earlier than Red Bull was. And I think Red Bull are going to literally be pushing themselves to try and get a car. And I think they're going to be short on development time, they're going to be short on resources, they're going to be short on funding, all because they focused so heavily, and rightly so, on 2021. Because Red Bull, I doubt, have the same amount of funding as Mercedes do. No. I doubt very much. And to keep up with Mercedes how Red Bull did, they had to have had a lot of money behind them. But that money that was put behind them in 2021, they got the Drivers' Championship, which didn't win them anywhere near the prize money that the Constructors' Championship wins them. So Mercedes have had that big cash injection from the constructors. Red Bull haven't. So Red Bull starting 2022 with pretty much, I would say, still trying to pay off 2021. And I think we could see Red Bull really, showing the lack of funding in the first sort of 5, 6, even 10 races until they maybe start developing the car a bit, catching up a little bit. But even then, it will go one of two ways. Either Red Bull come out the box firing and thinking, wow, where did that car come from? Or because they've got their own engines as well, so that's an extra funding they've had to find to sort out.
And actually, what comes in here as well is, this is just me throwing absolutely everything out the window, but it's well established that in his contract, Max Verstappen has a clause that states that if he gets to the halfway point in the season and himself and Red Bull are not in a certain position in the championship, he is allowed to walk away with no repercussions. So let's say he is not at that point. I mean, we don't know we know this clause exists, we just don't know the fine details. Let's say that Red Bull is not in that position, Max Verstappen is in that position. Does the reigning world champion walk away from Red Bull if that happens next year?
Well, not during the middle of the season, surely.
Oh, the clause is there. It's there. I mean, I'm just trying to spice things up here. I know it's probably never, ever going to happen because that's just stupid, especially because he's reigning world champion. That looks rubbish. But, it's a possibility.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if Red Bull do the opposite of Brawn, if that makes any sense. So they are nowhere for the first half of the season, and then
dominate,
not dominate as such, but come in and compete. And compete, maybe not compete for the drivers as such, or even for the constructors, but take points away, which will then affect. But so
essentially what Ferrari did in that 2009 season, where they were nowhere for the first 5 races.
Exactly. So I can seriously see Red Bull, as you said earlier on, being the 4th team in that 4, due to the fact they've spent so much money on 2021, so much development on 2021. Bear in mind they've got to develop their engine for this year as well. I'm thinking that engine will be pretty much undeveloped, and it could either be brilliant, amazing engine, or it could be a bag of bolts that breaks down. They're into the 4th engine by the 4th race. Everything's going wrong with Red Bull and all this.
Oh, there you are. Very interesting.
I hate to agree with Josh, but yeah, I really...
Again, twice in one day.
I know, I really can't see Red Bull being the powerhouse that they were this season. Verstappen will do well because Verstappen, but, beyond that, will Perez be fighting for wins? Will the Red Bull car actually be up there? I really don't think so. Perez is not a good qualifier either. He's a good race driver, absolutely a good race driver, but he's not a good qualifier. And if you're off the pace already next season, and he's he's a mediocre qualifier, he's going to be starting 10th, 11th, 12th every single race.
This is basically where, I know Ross said testing won't be because everyone will be sandbagging, but I think testing will be very important, and I think it will be almost like race 1 and 2 of the season, because yes, they'll probably...
For development-wise, absolutely, because you're going to have so many different bits of kit on all those cars that everyone's going to be racing each other to figure out what the hell everyone's different bits are.
Yeah, no, I don't think teams can afford to sandbag because the cars are so different, they need accurate stats, accurate timing, accurate data from the cars. And I think every lap will be literally, this is what we have. Take it or leave it. I don't think you can afford to sandbag, because then the results won't be decent. You're only getting, 6 days of testing before the race starts. Can a team really afford to sandbag on something that is basically a brand new, untested car? And in Red Bull's sake, brand new, untested engine. I don't think they can afford to sandbag, say, even a day, which is, 200 laps. I don't think they can afford to sandbag 200 laps and risk losing all that extra data.
Interesting. Very interesting. Again, it's important to remember that this is all going to get proven wrong within about 2 weeks' time or whenever testing starts. But, it's still...
Feb, I believe.
Really? Is it that short? That's quite close. I mean,
in Feb.
It's always at March. I mean, we're seeing our producer come in with some predictions as well, which I'm just not going to comment on the one that just pops up on the screen, because I don't need F1 Twitter going after me, frankly.
I mean, F1 Twitter goes after us anyway, but you
yeah, they do. I try and stay away from that place. Right, yeah, that's a thing. I don't want to talk about it. Lando Norris turns out he's not that innocent, sweet little boy we once all thought he was. But right, more predictions. We got a few minutes left, so let's see. We all know it's Charles Leclerc. We've been over this before.
George Russell.
No, we've been over this. One time, I remember very vividly after a show, we sat around for, was it half an hour, I think, literally just arguing about who the hottest F1
I can neither confirm nor deny this happened.
We should do next week's show. There we go.
Who's the hottest F1 driver? There you go.
That's
Motorsport Radio. Motorsport Radio's very first hottest F1 driver of the year award, coming to you live from a couple of bedrooms in England.
No.
That's a good point. If you want some shirtless racing drivers, go check out Racing Spunks on Instagram. We've also spent half an hour traversing through there after a show. It's a really wild place as our post-show Skype call. Shall we say that much? And of course, as always, if we've missed anything, do let us know. We're all very happy to have a look and have a read about your predictions and whatnot. So, I'll just chuck it out there. Anyone got any big predictions, little predictions they want to make?
The safety car will be out on 20 different occasions this season.
Is it the same 20 occasions Martin Brundle's going to be there?
So that's 20 occasions over the course of the season.
Okay, so it could be like 2 in 1 race.
Yeah, 2 in 1 race, 3 in 1 race.
All right, I'm going to make a note of that on my phone. And come season's end, in our season review, if you get it right, I'll buy you a bar of chocolate, Josh, because you're not that far away from me, are you? So I'll pop down the shops, I'll put it through your letterbox. There you go.
I think that says a lot about what you think he wants as a person. I'm going to buy you a bar of chocolate. I'm going to buy you a beer.
Who's going to turn down a bar of chocolate?
That's not the point here, Ross.
I'm trying to be nice. See, there you go. He's got a giant bar of chocolate on his desk right now. Point made. There you go. There you go. So 20 safety cars this season. Let's call it 1 billion virtual safety cars, because there's always more of those, isn't there? Right. Let me look at the calendar. I'll make a prediction off the top of my head looking at the calendar. I think it's going to rain at the following races. All right.
That's such a random thing, but go on.
Prepare yourself. No, it's not going to rain there, is it? Let's go.
I swear to God, if he says Bahrain, I'm going to...
I was thinking about Miami, but actually looking at the date, it's not quite right, is it? So we're gonna ignore that.
Like, drivers out due to heat exhaustion more than rain.
Yeah. It's if it was a different date, I would have thought about it, but yeah, not in May. Let's go Spa. I think it's going to rain at Spa again. Just getting that vibe.
A race this season.
I mean, we could. I think we'll rain at Suzuka. There you go. I think we're heading back to Suzuka, and it will give us an absolute banger of a race because we've all missed Suzuka, haven't we? And I think it's going to rain just to spice things up a bit. That could be the race Carlos Sainz wins for some reason. I don't know. Carlos Sainz will win at Suzuka in the rain. You heard it here first. When he actually does that, Josh can come down the road and buy me a bar of chocolate and post it through my letterbox.
I think the F1 testing in Barcelona in February, I think we might see some snow.
Again? Because we had that a few years back, didn't we, where the first week got snowed off. Was that 29? No, it was 2020, wasn't it? Yeah, because it was like, oh, wow, look, haha, it all got snowed off, and then the season got delayed by like 4 months because of some giant global pandemic thing.
Yeah, I think we could get, maybe not snowed off, but you might see some F1 cars racing, and oh, look, it's starting to snow.
Okay, we'll see.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I could see a driver getting COVID at testing, to be honest.
They could come back after partying.
Maybe that's where Alonso's getting COVID. You know, maybe he gets COVID at pre-season testing, and Piastri has to hop in the car and do some pre-season testing.
Oh my God, you are just salivating over this idea, aren't you?
What? It's exciting. He's got one of the strongest junior careers of any driver in the modern era, and he's sat on the sidelines.
Hülkenberg had one of the strongest junior careers of any driver in the modern era. My point being, he wasn't.
And we were all very excited when Hülkenberg got into the sport. You know, that's the past, though. This is the future. I'm not saying Piastri's going to jump in the car and immediately win the World Championship. I'm just very excited to see what he can do in an F1 car.
Mick Schumacher will get a podium this season.
All right, finally, something different.
That is a shout. You know what? I could see that. I'll tell you what I think. I think Mick Schumacher is going to get signed for Ferrari at the end of the season for 2023.
To replace who?
Sainz. Because Sainz is
really?
So right, Sainz is contracted. Right. Hey, here you go. Here, I'm going to now predict some stuff, some driver transfer stuff at the end of the season.
Go on.
So at the end of this season, we've got a fair few drivers whose contracts come to an end. I can't remember who it is, but I know that Sainz and Ricciardo are two of them. I think Sainz is going to get replaced by Schumacher, and I think Sainz is going to replace Ricciardo back at McLaren. I think Ricciardo is going to be out of the seat. I think Sainz is going to go back to McLaren.
I will back you up on Ricciardo losing the seat. I don't think he's done enough, and as I proved with the Kvyat point, Ricciardo was a little bit overhyped. He's riding too much on that 2014 success. And yeah, if McLaren are championship competitive, they're going to want a championship competitive driver. Saying that, I don't think Schumacher's getting a podium with Haas this year. I wish Haas the best of luck, but no. That car, despite no development for an entire season, is not going to be good enough for a podium, even at an absolutely horrendous Baku Grand Prix where it rains and half the field crashes into turn one. And yeah, I don't think it's happening. I really don't think it's happening.
How about if Latifi gets a podium? Let's shake up a bit. Williams might come out.
In fairness, I will say that Albon, I think, might get a podium at some point next season. Like, realistically, I think that Williams car is in a good trajectory going forward. They've got the money behind it, the development behind it, and Albon is not a slow driver. And so with the right car under his belt and the right tools and being the team leader effectively, I think he could get a fluke podium at one race.
Tell
Okay.
you what, I can see Schumacher leaving Haas before the end of the season.
To go where?
I thought maybe Alpha, but then maybe not.
To replace who, though? That's the problem.
To replace Bottas?
I couldn't see that happening. I mean, next season, in 2023, I think Joe's only going to have 1 year in the Alpha seat, and then I think they're going to move him on because Alpha are going to want Teo Pourchaire in the car. But I mean, if Schumacher has a brilliant season and he's available, but
it's better to sign an F1 driver that knows his F1 car rather than a rookie, which sadly is something we're not very used to.
Pourchaire he will be in 2023. At the start of 2023, he'll be 19 still as well, and Mick will be 22, 23. So still plenty of years ahead of Teo Pourchaire.
This is what I think will happen, right? I think that there'll be a race, whether it be Baku, Monaco, whatever, where Schumacher will completely outshine the car so massively, like get a podium, whatever, get fourth place in a car and Haas will be awful, but Schumacher would do that, and everyone will be like, wow. And I think during the summer break, he will be moved. Ferrari will authorise a move somewhere for him away from Haas, and it will be a straight swap, whether it be to Alpha and Zhou goes to Haas for the rest of the season, whether it be, Ferrari or whatever. But there's something about Schumacher this season. I think he could well be not a Haas driver by the end of the season.
Well, we know Schumacher's a second season driver. We've seen that back in Euro F3, where the first season he didn't really do much, and then he comes along and kind of smacks up the field in the second season. We saw it in F2, where, to be fair,
and Formula 4.
And Formula 4 as well. F2 as well. To be fair, Callum Ilott did kind of bottle the title just a little bit, but he was consistent enough to be there to take the title when Callum Ilott bottled it. Bear in mind it's a reg change. I'm not sure how well that trend's going to continue, but I could certainly see this being a good season. I think it's definitely a make or break season for Mick Schumacher, because he has been, since the second he was born, he's basically been on the Ferrari Driver Academy, because he comes from the testicles of Michael, and it's. I do love that joke. I do apologize. I say it whenever I can. I do apologize. It's a great joke, but I think it's definitely a make or break season, because when you look at the Ferrari Driver Academy, we've seen some changes to the Ferrari Driver Academy today. We saw that Marcus Armstrong's been dropped, but you've got Robert Schwartzman, who's, I think he's going to be test driver for Haas or Alpha, I don't know which one, I can't remember which one, next season. And he hasn't had a great year in F2, to be honest, but the word on the street is he had an F1 test at Imola, a private test with Ferrari, and apparently it went swimmingly well. So and they really love him. You can tell, they're always getting him in the car. He's always on all their Instagram, and oh, look, it's Robert Schwartzman. So if Schumacher has an average season, and if Schwartzman impresses in the sim, impresses in tests, do you get a situation, do we keep, on board, Mick Schumacher, or do we, give this new guy a try? Of course, that brings in why I think one of the reasons why they'll replace Sainz as well if Schumacher has a good season is because the fact that his name is Schumacher, and you put a Schumacher in a Ferrari and you've instantly just made about £70 billion, because that is the PR man's ultimate wet dream. And just imagine the money they will make off the merchandise.
How about this for a scenario that would make everyone's a wet dream, right? 3 days before Monza, Sainz gets COVID.
Oh no!
Ferrari are like, we need a replacement driver. Schumacher gets the Ferrari seat. Schwartzman gets the Haas seat for Monza. In qualifying, Schumacher qualifies on the front row of Monza in a Ferrari.
The limbs. I can imagine.
Oh boy.
Connor's looking fed up now.
The Ferrari.
It's a dream scenario. It's definitely a dream scenario for every Tifosi out there. I can also see our producers now put, we need to talk about Piastri. Do we need to talk about Piastri? We've already talked about that 20 times he's a week.
He's not even racing next season, guys.
Yeah, he's just doing sim work and reserve driving.
I'd like to remind you, Ross and Josh, for reference, there are 2 teams, and maybe 3, that we haven't actually mentioned at all in any of these predictions, and yet we've mentioned Piastri about 5 times.
Right. Who haven't we mentioned?
We haven't mentioned Aston Martin. We have barely mentioned Alpine, and we've barely mentioned AlphaTauri.
Irrelevant. What's the bald
Aston
eagle?
Martin, I think, are going to be disappointing again, and I think Vettel's going to retire at the end of the season. I think Stroll will beat him as well. AlphaTauri, I think, will just be pretty average. I think Tsunoda's going to get the axe at the end of the season, and then Williams, they'll be all right.
I didn't even say Williams.
Oh, you said Alpine, didn't you? I was thinking about Williams for some reason. Alpine, they'll be right. There you go.
Oh my God, that's terrible. I hate you. No.
AlphaTauri are part of Ferrari, aren't they? Or
No. The Red Bull's out.
No, Red Bull.
I was like, maybe Schumacher might go there, and Tsunoda goes.
I'm not entirely sure how willing Dr. Helmut Marko would be to let a non-Red Bull junior sit in the Red Bull junior seat, to be honest.
Depends.
Who will end up the baldest driver? Oh, that's a great question. We just got the producer just giving them to him now. Did you say Gasly?
No.
Vettel.
Oh, I couldn't hear you. Vettel, yeah. I think maybe Hamilton goes for a skin fade. Maybe he comes back as a skinhead. That's his new look. He's becoming more violent. He's coming back as a he's realised that he wants to imitate his biggest fan, Joshua Harrison, and he's coming back as a skinhead.
I could see Latifi like throwing it up as some sort of like mid-age crisis or something, and it's like he comes back with completely shaved heads, Jason Bourne style, not Jason Bourne, like the Rock style or whatever, and it's like, aha, look, I am Superman Latifi, and it's like, no.
Well, tell you what I can see Hamilton having. I can have a bald head, but just the hair in the shape of the BLM,
the fist.
So
I think that requires a no politics sign. Thank you.
There we go.
Saudi Arabia, Black Lives Matter across his head.
All right, cool. That's half the viewers gone.
Unless the fact that that's just probably quite crude, I think as well that's quite difficult to do. I think, I don't know. It's an interesting baldest driver. I mean, Seb was definitely going quite bald at the start of the season. He managed to pull it back. Didn't pull back his performances, but he pulled back his hairline, and that's what matters.
But how do you do that? How do you go from being bald to having a full lock of hair without obviously?
Ask Lewis Hamilton. He was bald at like 22. Ask Wayne Rooney as well. Him and Lewis Hamilton were both bald at about 22 and are now sporting full heads of hair. Who's going to end up looking their age? Vettel, Alonso. I think Hamilton's going to come back with a few wrinkles as well. I don't know. Perez, I think it's about time he got a grey hair or two as well.
Hamilton, his blonde physio.
Yeah,
I think she's married.
Yeah, Angela or whatever her name is. I don't think they are in a relationship, Josh. I hate to break it to you. I think Lewis is going to rock up with a few wrinkles, He's 37 now. That's like ancient. So our producer gets angry in my ear. That's basically like, how old? Schumacher was 36 and he retired the first time, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. That is really old, man.
I mean, we're all digging on Raikkonen for being too old at the end, and he's only 3 years older than Lewis.
Really? Oh my God. I don't like this sport anymore. Everyone's really old.
It's scary as well when you consider how long Hamilton's been in Formula One as well.
Yeah.
Like 2007, like I was only 13 when he you know what I mean?
I mean, you say that, but you look at Alonso, been here since 2001. I know he's had that gap, but, it's still going. Who would be the sexiest couple? Is that like driver pairing, or is it, someone comes out with their girlfriend a la Lando Norris style and is like, I don't know.
Maybe we'll start seeing the F1 drivers' girlfriends in the paddock now.
I don't want to, please. I do not care. Yeah, the only celebrity I think who has ever deserved airtime at an F1 race was Rowan Atkinson. The rest of them can all just shut up and go away. I do not care that you are at a Formula One event. It's like, why are we looking at shots of this celebrity going, oh, look, I'm on TV? Why are we looking at the crowd on the outside of turn 7? Show me the race. I do not care at all.
Jerry, we'll get more interviews, I reckon.
Yeah.
Ross does not care for the crowd. Confirmed. He loved COVID. He loved the races where there was nobody at the events.
COVID was fantastic. It was so amazing. When I went to Silverstone last year, and I was on the bus down to the pit lane, and you were looking at the windows, 170,000 people, and it's like, I really wish we were back under lockdown right now because it's 35 degrees. There's 170,000 people here, all being really annoying. It's like, just shut up. Nah. I do not care. I want to see the stuff on the track, not someone doing a Mexican wave. Show me that at like a football event when there is literally nothing going on. I do not care. I'm having a breakdown now. Not this year. I'm already having a breakdown. I've not burst into tears yet, but it's going to get that way.
Ross, we're only 11 days into 2022. You know, we've got plenty of Joshua antics to get up to before you need to have a proper breakdown.
Oh, God.
How often will Jerry Horner be referred to as the Red Bull champion wife?
How often will, when Jerry Horner appears on screen, will Crofty make some joke about ginger spice? And I'm going to guarantee you it's every single race at this point, because it will be like, oh, look, it's ginger spice. Thank you, Crofty. We know.
You understand how relationships work.
I don't like Formula One anymore. Does someone else want to host the F1 show? I'll quit. I'm fed up. I'm fed up of this show. I could have done it. I could have played FIFA tonight, and instead I'm sat here with you two.
How many pairs of Bose headphones will Toto Wolff go through this season?
A few. I think that's fair.
Oh,
a few.
God.
I think we're going to get a lot more Toto Wolff reaction gifts. I think that's F1 have hit a gold mine with that one. I will give them that one. FOM have hit an absolute gold mine with them putting a camera on Toto Wolff every 5 seconds. I'll give them that. That is actually, I'll tell you what, that's one of the few people that I don't mind seeing on the screen outside of the track is Toto Wolff. It's like the race personnel, you know, like Michael Massey, Toto Wolff. Some like mechanics, Christian Horner, Adrian Newey, people like that, and then Rowan Atkinson, and no one else deserves screen time. Then it is just exclusively drivers and like a marshal or something if they run to pick up a bit of wing that's like fallen off someone. There you go. Why am I not the broadcast director over at FOM? I think I'd be brilliant. Because you'd watch as your viewing figures immediately plummet to about half of what they once were. Yeah, that's a good question. Toto Wolff. I'm gonna go with a solid 2. I think he's gonna double his money, but I don't think it's gonna be too ridiculous. We saw 1 last year. Let's go with 2. I think 2 is a good number.
I'm gonna say that because it will be in the first half of the season, and because he will realise how much the car is terrible at the start, he won't be smashing any headphones, because any success later in the season he will be proud about because of how far they've come, rather than this season where he seemed like he's had the rug pulled from under him, and it's the child's thrown his toys out the pram, because he's just can't accept that after 8 years of dominance he's suddenly not the guy in first.
I'm going to go for 3 sets. I'm going to think he's going to get extra stressed because he'd have gone a year without title, and I think the more closer he gets to 2...
He's had a constructor's title, Josh.
But not a driver's title. It's not the same thing.
He's not the driver.
His team, yeah, but he's a German. He wants everything.
What's that even supposed to mean? I mean, yeah, for example, as our producer here, Toto Wolff's actually Austrian. And second of all, what does that even mean? That's a good question. I mean, I'm going to say I think he won't be race director before the season even starts, to be brutally honest, as No Politics flashes up on the screen. Thank you, Josh. He's not the only Austrian to be confused with the Germans, I'll say that much.
Oh, my God.
That was a joke. I'm not stating that Toto Wolff is a certain fascist dictator from the 1930s. Oh my God,
stop digging your grave, Josh. Moving on.
All right, Michael Massey. No, that's a no. I don't even think he's going to be race director at the start of the season. I'm just letting our producer just bang some questions up on screen and then just answering them at this point, because I've run out of predictions.
Who will be the most talked to race director on the pit wall during a race?
Oh, the most team principal.
Year it was Red Bull, McLaren, and that's about it. They were the only 2 that were talked to the whole for the season.
Oh yeah, it's because it's the only ones that Sky could annoy enough to be like, yeah, go on then. Good question. I reckon it'll be same 2 as well. I mean, they occasionally used to talk to my staff now, but obviously he's not the team principal anymore, is he?
Indeed. Crazy prediction number 3, Safnauer for Alpine at some point before the start of the season.
Yeah, that's actually a very good prediction. I could see that. I think Cyril Abitbol is going to return with Aston Martin. There you go. That's my prediction.
Right, straight swap. Oh, that's a
straight swap. There we go. He's had his time off. He's coming back in with Aston. let's turn this back around. Yeah, I could see Safnauer going to Alpine. I think that's a good shout, actually. Yeah.
We have some F1 driver fights in the pit lane at some point during the season.
We like Schumacher Hill, Coulthard 1998 style. Yeah. Christian and Toto are finally sorting it out. We should have a charity boxing match between Christian and Toto.
They should have that.
Christian will get absolutely battered.
He would, to be fair.
I mean, we had that 4-hour program when nothing was happening.
Yeah.
They just got, in the middle of the pit lane, just Wolf versus Horner boxing. Who wins?
Yeah, I think we should have like a charity football match of like drivers versus team principals or something, and just watch as the drivers win like 20-0. Charity rugby match. There you go. Who would not pay good money to see Toto Wolff body Christian Horner? I would pay good money to see that. I would pay good money. Put it on F1 TV exclusive. I do not care. I want to see this.
I reckon Toto Wolff's a tank. He'll just run through Horner.
But he is, because he's like 7 foot tall, so no one's going to be able to bring him down, are they?
Toto is a strong guy. Let's say that. He leads that team not just through strong words, but through strong presence.
He might even have a certain moustache, like a German dictator.
Okay. Yeah, the dictator was Austrian as well. Moving swiftly onwards from our World War II references, looking at the time, I think I'm going to wrap us up there on that very, very low note. Connor, congratulations being the only one not to make an Adolf Hitler joke in the last 10 minutes.
I was hoping you wouldn't mention the name, I'll be honest, Ross. I was hoping we could get through this whole show and no one would mention it. But no, this is how we're starting.
We're going to be getting a very angry email from Mercedes, aren't we?
We're going to get a very angry email from people who aren't Mercedes. Let's be perfectly honest here.
All right, so we're now comparing motorsport figures to high-ranking Nazi officials. Okay, join us next time on Motorsport Radio as we compare who in the paddock are the Nazis. Maybe let's not do that to avoid getting taken off the internet forever. We are, of course, strictly joking. This was Motorsport Radio. Goodbye. And, of course, it's important to know that every joke made was on behalf of the presenters, and our views do not represent Motorsport Radio or Motorsport Media whatsoever. I thought I should just specify that before I get the police knocking on all of our front doors. Thank you for watching along and listening in. Connor, any closing thoughts, any final predictions you want to make?
Help me, get me out of this contract.
All right, so that's 2 of us quitting, so Josh, looks like you're on your own next week. Josh, any last thoughts, any final predictions?
I think this is proof for us that you have to plan and schedule this show.
I think it is proof that I have to plan and schedule this show, to be honest, isn't it? This was very much, I got a text about mid-afternoon. I was like, we're doing an F1 show. And, I don't know, just bring some predictions with you. Usually I schedule it. I was like, let's see how it goes. This has been a disaster, hasn't it? Go on then. We'll end up. Yeah, thanks for watching along.
World champion.
Roger, I don't know who's going to be world champion, but there you go. Let's have Nicholas Latifi. He'll be world champion. There you go. Trying to think of an actual semi-serious prediction to end on. I'll tell you what. To end on a high note, of course, let me do my goodbye monologue. Thank you very much for tuning in to the first F1 show of 2022. Probably the last as well, as we all get arrested / heavily fined. But yeah, thank you for tuning in. It's been a pleasure, of course. Thank you to the 2 wonderful boys on that side of me. That's left in real life. I don't know what side it is on screen. It's been a pleasure, as always. And of course, Josh, you'll be here on your own next week, but Connor, I'll be seeing you behind bars, I'm sure. My prediction, the final prediction of this week of the F1 show, is that no matter what, this season of Formula One is going to be spectacular. Thank you very much for joining us. Same time, same place next week. See you then.